So I just want to check whether the voice is going through. Hello. RX needs new batteries. So let's see. So now we have fresh batteries. Can I hear myself? Yeah, nice. This works. So these Thursday lectures, I'm going to try to record and stream. So if you go to Auto Fab Lab YouTube channel, so you'll be, so there are playlists, and there should be one more. There should be Fab Academy 2020, and under this Fab Academy 2020, you'll be able to find the videos that I'm going to try to record during Thursdays. So now also, I'm streaming. So if in case you fall sick and you still want to join the lectures, then you can also. I want to make it so that you are able to stream it also from another location. But it's better to be here, especially for the parts when you're doing some digital fabrication, something with the machines. So it would be nice to have some sort of a hands-on experience. So for you, I created this GitLab account, so GitLab project, Fab Academy 2020. So you should go there, try to read through these instructions. So the most important things that we discussed already yesterday are there. So the schedule, so on Wednesdays, 4 o'clock, we have the global lecture. On Thursdays, 3 o'clock, we have the local lecture. So of course, it's going to start 3:15, but I just know that some of you have courses until 3 o'clock, so there's a 15-minute buffer. And then on Mondays, there are the global elucidations. So you might ask when you can work at the lab. So this I also tried to explain yesterday, but here's an overview. So generally, the lab is open from 10 to 4 every day, so you can come here every day, no matter what, so the tables are free. But then on Mondays, you have to book the machines through the Auto takeout system, so you have the same privileges as every other person in Auto University. And then Tuesdays, there's no booking. So there's an open day, so people also from outside are invited. So whoever wants to use the machines, you have to just talk with other people and negotiate like a live queue. And then on Wednesdays, usually we are closed for maintenance, but so that's an opportunity for you to have the lab for yourself, for the course specifically. So if somebody is not part of the course, then I'm asking them to help to clean up the lab, and this is how they earn social credits, and they can use the machines with that. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, it's also like the regular Fab Lab days when people have to, or the Auto University students, they have to book the machines. So yeah. So also for you to know, so I have a little buffer. So on top of the opening times, so usually I'm here from 9 and then I'm staying around until 5. So if there's like a last minute job to be done, like a 1 hour laser cutting thing, then it could be done in the mornings or in the afternoons from 4 to 6. Yeah, so here I have the participants list. What I want to have, so first of all, I just want to add links to your GitLab accounts. So here you can see, so this is for me to see and also for you to see each other. So what I want you to do before we start with the HTML and JIT part is that you make your own GitLab accounts. Another thing, yeah, so there's also a part about documentation, so what I expect. So after you have made your GitLab accounts, you should make a repository for the Fab Academy documentation. And so in this repository, you are going to document every week. And the structure of the website, it really doesn't matter how you make it. So if you have more experience with HTML and web development, then push the limits of it. But the main thing is that the structure should be more or less clear. So usually the Fab Academy documentation website has an about part, about page, where you describe who you are, what do you want to do in your life, and so what is your motivation for joining the Fab Academy and so on. And then a final project page where you, so for the first week you need to put a short description and a sketch of your hypothetical final project. And then a section for assignments where you will have subsections with every week well documented, so with all the things that you did in order to make things happen and make things real. So then, so yeah, so these are going to be the weekly assignments. So we are going to use GitLab as the main project management tool. So all the main information about the course and how we are doing things here, you are going to find in the Auto Fab Lab, Fab Academy 2020 project. And so the questions related to each week we should discuss in issues. So each GitLab project has an issue tracker. So if there's something that is related to general course, like the general course question, then please post the question in the general issue here. If it's related to any of the weeks that we have covered, then post it in the week issue. And then for every week, I will update the issue with the with the learning outcomes and a checklist of what has to be done. So this issue, also the source of this issue, I'll copy to the repositories of each of you, so to the documentation repository. And I'm going to use these checklists as the main way how to evaluate you. So every week I'm going to try to go over your progress and then just tell. So whether you have read the Fab Charter, then whether you have a final project idea on your website visible. So whether you have described what to actually do, these kind of things. And then anyhow, so basically these all these things are also can be found on the Fab Academy website. So if you go to fabacademy.org, you go to content and assessment guide 2020, and all of the weeks are here, and you can clearly find information about what has to be done, what are the learning outcomes, and like a checklist. Like so. So, but first things first, I would like to know the links to your GitLab repositories first.
I just sent you an email. I'm Niklas Ekholm. I'll read it fine.
I sent you an email also yesterday.
You sure? Okay, let me see. Hmm. There's something going on. I do not see your emails.
Well, my account is Polly.Oscar, so my last name.
Oh, okay.
My first name.
I think I remember your email. I think it's just... here we go. Should be it. This is yours. Then Nicholas.
Just Nicholas.com. First name, last name, spelled together.
Like that?
No dot.
No dot. Echo. Okay, here we go. So Ansi is he here? Nicholas not, Solomon not, Ranji is here. So then, do you have?
One extra.
Yeah. Should I send it to you or?
But since you're an exchange student, are you staying for the whole 6 months or?
No, I will leave in the end of May.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's try. So what's your name?
Eduardo, E-D-O, Eduardo. So instead of the U, it's an O. Yeah, that's it. D-I-R-O-D-D-I. P. Yeah, that's it. I-R-R-O-D-D-I. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And your account?
Is it the link?
What's your account name? Eduardo. Yeah. So yeah. So it's just Eduardo.
Yeah, just Eduardo.
Like that?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So next important thing is that on each of these repositories, I want you to create a project. So create a project with the name Fab Academy. Are you using the laser?
Yeah, we're
Yeah. Meanwhile, while you're not using, I'm just gonna close that. So that when I go to your project, then I should be able to just edit the URL of it and should be able to access it like this. So yeah, so it's fine to have an empty repository at this point. So that's fine. So, and what I'm going to do now is also I'll edit the links. So that just after this there's a Fab Academy. And now when I click on them, yeah, I should be able to access the individual repositories. So this is not yet there. Just mean
I think I did. Let me check.
not found.
Yeah, Fab Dash Academy.
Public.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
Ah, it's not public. Okay, so yeah, you should make it public.
Thought I did, sorry. Let me figure out how to close that.
So also for Kim,
Yeah.
so maybe you should also make it public. So you can edit the settings in for the repository here in the settings part. So when you go to settings, there's general settings, visibility, project features and permissions, expand, and project visibility. You set it to public. Oh, okay, so Ranji is also here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in your case, you're gonna use the Fab Cloud. So it's you could rather. So when you get the link to Fab Cloud, then it's better that you actually add that link there.
I'll get it from.
So, but yeah, you will get it. If you will get it later, I'm just gonna add this for now, so you can follow along. So because the GitLab and in Fab Cloud, it's very similar. It's basically the same as this one. So.
And then I'm public, by the way.
So Ranji. And also make a project in there. Wait. Academy. Yes. Okay, now let's go once more. So just mean. Here we go with a README file. Very good. Kim. Here we go. Then one thing. Yes, it's there. Nicholas. Yep. Eduardo. Here we go. Okay, and Ranji. Oh, you don't have the report. Did you make a project?
I think I made something by mistake.
Then yeah, so maybe you didn't make it public. So this is what I was showing. So you go to the settings of the repository, and then you scroll down. So there's visibility, project features, and permissions, and set the project visibility to public. Okay, I think we're good to go. So yeah, so we are going to use JIT for version control. So version control is a nice way to document your work. So it allows, it makes experimentation a very flexible process. So for example, if you have a crazy idea and you want to try it out on an existing solution, so you can move in steps, and if the idea that you are trying out fails at some point and you want to return in a safe history of time, then you can do it with JIT. So with any kind of version control. So JIT is so far the most popular version control system. So it has been created by Linus Torvalds, so the same person who is behind the Linux kernel, and he basically made JIT to be able to version control the Linux kernel. And the story is that the creation of JIT, so the main things around it were created in one day, and then after this one day of work, he basically could already version control the development of JIT itself. So what you should do, you should just install it. So for different systems, there are different ways. So if you're on Mac and you're using, let's say, Homebrew, and all you have to do is, so I'm using this crazy terminal over here. Then you can run brew install Git, and it's going to install Git. If you are afraid of terminal, but you shouldn't be, because it's a big part of the Fab Academy itself. So you should go through a command line tutorial to understand its basics. Actually, I have some introduction to command line from the last year's Fab Academy Thursdays.
Yeah.
Wait. So there's command line basics over here. So it's a short introduction about how it works. So you can watch that later. But yeah, now I would like you to have this installed. And then once you have it installed, then you should be able to configure it. You have to configure it with your name and email address. So basically git so you should usually when you create a new repository, there are already the instructions. So wait a minute.
So you want to do it with the terminal. Open terminal. Right.
So usually Git stores its configuration in your home folder. So when you just type plain cd in your terminal and then you open git config file in any of your text editors, so you will see these entries. So this is through editing the file, but there was wait. But the first steps are, so git, you would type git config global username, and you would set the name for Git. So Git is going to use this name and email whenever you add something to the Git history. Like so. When this is done, then you should generate an SSH key to be added to your GitLab, so that it doesn't ask you for username and password every time you're trying to upload something to your repository using Git. So if you go in GitLab, so if you go to settings, you go to general, not in the repositories, I'm sorry. When you go to your user account settings here, so you will see that there's your user icon, and you go to settings here, and you will go to the section called SSH keys. So this is where you will be able to add the SSH keys. And as you see, there's a text field, and you have to type or paste something in there.
So we're having some issues with just installing Git. Okay.
Okay.
He says that running Homebrew as root is extremely dangerous. No longer keep functions.
It's kind of weird. it's really homebrew as root. You don't have to use sudo, so you just brew install Git.
But there was
Yeah, we
some.
tried that initially. Where? Yeah, here, and then it kind of gave me a similar error. I don't know if that's fine. You have the same model, I believe, right?
Can you run Git? Like minus, like Git minus version?
Where from? Should I just?
Terminal, so Git
Yeah.
dash version.
Okay.
Missing.
I would if I could.
I don't have the command line tools.
I feel like I'm getting sick. It's the rain.
Me too.
Oh, it's a bit broken. It's gonna take some time to fix it, so just follow along and we're gonna fix it later. Yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
Just click generate one for adding an SSH key. Do we just generate one, or do we like type in our own?
No, you should generate it. So some of you might have one already. So if you go to terminal and then you list your home directory .ssh, then you should have some files there. So if you don't have any, that means that you don't have an SSH keys. But if you have at least like this ID RSA pub or ID ed anything like dot pub, then it means that you have an SSH key. And what you have to do, you have to copy the contents of this one and paste into here. So it's basically public-private key encryption. So there's so in these directory, for these, so the files that do not have the pub extension, these are the private keys of yours. So you shouldn't share them or show them to anyone. But then the public keys are for sharing. So, and if you add your public key to GitLab, so GitLab is going to be able to decode anything that has been encrypted with your private key. So this is how it works. So when you send something out of your computer, it is going to be encrypted with the private key. And then on the other end, only people with the public key are going to be able to decode it. So, and this is how, so since you added the public key to GitLab, so GitLab is going to know that the connection between your computer and GitLab is safe and it's not going to ask for a password. So if you don't have those, then you should go to this section over here, and there's everything you need in order to learn how to generate your own keys. And there's a part generating a new SSH key pair. And this is all it takes. Also for Windows, if you have Windows, then make sure that you install the command line version of Git. So it's going to make a lot of things easier. I mean, it might seem that it's easier to deal with the graphical user interface, but then most of the tutorials and also in a way you'll make your documentation is going to be much easier if you are going to do Git through command line. It's just going to be easier to document. So maybe you don't have the.
Yeah, you should copy its content.
Okay. Do I just do CD?
You can easiest is just cat and into pb copy.
Yeah, or open it with the text editor. So you should you can do it in several ways. So I'm going to show. So so if you're doing it through command line, then you can use cat.
Right, yeah, that's good line /sh.
And it's going to output a string like this. So this is my public key, so that I add to GitLab or GitHub.
Do it again, but remove that. Just open that /sh instead.
And then like on Mac, you also have this nice utility
Drag that one file to a text editor.
pb copy, and so in Unix systems you can use this pipe in order to forward the output of a specific command to another program. And then you can use this pb copy, which is going to copy the contents of the files directly into the buffer. So I can just copy that like this, and I can go back to the SSH key field and just Command V or just right click and paste, and it's going to paste the SSH key in here, just like that.
Can you go to terminal at once?
Or you can also do it without the pb copy part.
How come mine is only one line long and you have very long key?
Oh, I don't know.
Is it
Maybe because I chose the length of the key a bit differently. So maybe. So the other one.
does it matter? I mean,
No, I don't think it matters. So this is the other one.
oh yeah,
That's
Yeah,
that's the one you think. So it doesn't necessarily have to be so long.
okay. Yeah, okay.
So my key is already added over here. So you should have one entry. So under the SSH keys, like at least one. So if you just started with GitLab, and so once you have it there, you should go to your individual project. So not the Fab Academy 2020 project here, but your individual page. And here you'll see a button that is called Clone. You should click on that, and it will reveal two links, which are basically two options how you can download, or in Git terms, clone the repository onto your own computer. So this is the feature why Git is called distributed version control system, because every participant who is developing something, or who is responsible or has access to the code, can have a separate copy of the repository or of the whole version control history and the files. And it is important at this point, so after you added the SSH key, that you choose the clone with SSH option, because this is what is going to help you avoid entering usernames and passwords, especially if in GitLab you are enabling two-factor authentication. Then just entering password and username, it's not going to be enough. So you need like this SSH or public-private key setup. So you hit clone, and then next to the clone with SSH, you click on the button copy URL, and you go back to terminal. So you type cd to go to the home directory, and then you type git clone, and you paste the URL here, and then you hit enter.
The authenticity can't be established.
Sorry?
The authenticity of the host is blah 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 can't be established.
Oh, did you do the...
But did you try to clone your own repository? So what I'm trying to tell is that you should. Let me see that.
Well, I mean, it gives me the option to just say yes or no.
So yeah.
Ah, yes. Yeah, you type yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you type
Or
yes.
it's just problem.
yeah.
Is that
No, you have to type explicitly yes. Okay.
Oh no, I'm doing fine.
Yeah,
I
okay.
just want to show him this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, true. So, okay, so
So you clone after you have the key, right? SSH.
yes. And then after the clone, you should go into the repository. So Fab Academy here. So I'll maybe make like another project. In my case, it's the Fab Academy 2020. So I'll do this. So if it's an empty repository, it's just going to create a directory, empty directory with the project name. If not, then you are going to see something like this, that it's cloning into Fab Academy, so in my case 2020, and then there are going to be messages about receiving objects and deltas and so on.
But I think it's better to do it from the command line. So, what's the governance?
So now you should have your repository in the folder Fab Academy on your local computers. You should use CD to move into it. In my case, I see only a plain README file over here. So that's a success already. Next thing is you should choose your text editor. So for some of you who stayed until the end, I told that you should install one of those. So for Windows, this is a really nice text editor, Notepad++. Then for cross-platform, like Atom is nice, and so I use Sublime because I started to use it 10 years ago and I still do. And then there are many others. So there are also command line text editors, such as Nano, for example. That's a really easy one. So it looks like this, and you can use only keyboard in it, so no mouse. And you need to use special keyboard shortcuts in order to save and exit. Then some people like Vim and Emacs, so we can take a look at those as well.
Is Visual Studio Code on the same level as this, or is it something totally different?
Sorry?
Is Visual Studio Code like on the same level?
Oh, it's an overkill for this, but you can use that as well to edit files, of course.
Okay.
Can you show how to clone again once more, like on the terminal?
So just like this.
Because that's the thing, if there's any of the thing you're going into your own, and you created just...
So yeah, there's a list of basic commands that you can use. So there's a tutorial on that I will show you later, but I'm gonna cover all the commands also in this video. So yeah, well, next thing is to choose your weapon or choose your text editor in order so you can actually edit files. And I'm gonna demonstrate to you how I use Sublime Text in order to create an index file for your documentation websites. So here. So here I have an empty file in the text editor. And in Sublime, it's really easy to start to make a website, an HTML website. So I'm going to save this to the repository that I just cloned. So Fab Academy 2020. In your case, is going to be Fab Academy. And I'm going to save the file as index.html. So index.html is usually the first file that your browser is going to try to access whenever it is communicating with a web server. So whenever you open a browser and you type in a website address such as google.com or fabacademy.org or the website address of your website, then the browser is going to try to make a handshake with the server, and it's going to ask for the server to return the index.html, so whatever index file is there. So usually the web servers on that end, they have a configuration file where you have to define which of the files from the websites, from the directories that are being served to the World Wide Web are being considered as index files, but usually it's index.html. And so HTML has a special markup, and it usually starts with the document type definition. So earlier, like 10 years earlier, so this part was really long and complicated, but now it's just, the document type is HTML, so it stands basically for HTML5. So your HTML document should usually begin with this one. As I yesterday told that I'm going to talk about the basics of HTML mainly, so if you have some more extensive web development background, then you can use whatever you like. So for example, a framework is nice, but then like any frameworks like Vue.js or React.js or Angular, they at the end of the day they translate to HTML anyway. So and if you're just starting out, so then 1 week is just enough to cover the basics of HTML, and it's just enough to make your documentation website.
So if we have a look at this, there's still the...
But as I told, like it seems that there's a bigger issue going on, and I'm not going to be able to solve it now.
No, definitely. So we managed to get the thing working.
Yes, you type yes.
And then did you get the SSD key? Yeah, so the SSD key is still missing.
Yeah, so you need to add your SSH key to the repository. So.
And that was not here.
So, so document type comes first, and as you see in HTML, there are like these these things in the brackets. These are called HTML tags, and usually there's a starting and closing tag, like opening and closing tag, except for the doc type. So HTML is the opening tag for the HTML document, and it's also the first and the last tag of the HTML document. Then there are essentially two parts of the HTML document. One is head, so which is rather the invisible part. So this is where you define the metadata of your website. So you add a title, and you should add some extra things such as what was its content or encoding. Wait a minute, what was this string here? 8. So this is because if you are going to use special characters in your website, then your browser is gonna go crazy, and in order to avoid that, you need to add this special tag over here. So another thing that you should add is maybe this one. And this is important if you want your website to behave the same way on like a proper way on your desktop browser and also on your mobile device. So the other things you can just leave as they are. And then the body, so this part, is where the visible part of your website is going to go. And you can start with plain text like this, and then you're going to go to Finder, to the directory where you're storing the HTML file, and you're going to try to open it in the browser. Then you'll see that text appears. So this is like your basic website, and the title that you entered in the head part is going to appear here, like on the as the title of the tab. So we can close this now. We can go back to the text file. So, and let's make title or heading. And this is going to be a paragraph of text. Then I'm going to add a list. And the list is going to be a representation of the architecture, of the content architecture that we are going to have. Something like that. I don't remember exactly what was the second week. Either it was cutting or the computer-aided design. So yeah, so UL, so H1 means heading 1. So headings go from 1 to 6. So number 1 is the highest level heading, and then number 6 is the lowest level heading. So you should think of HTML as a book for the science departments to share their documents, as it started at CERN. So paragraph, P means paragraph. So this is for paragraphs of text. Then UL means unordered list. And as for the unordered list, so what is going on here? Okay. So as for the unordered list, you can add individual list elements. So which all start with other list elements further. So let's take a look at the browser. How does it look like? So as you see, they're all nicely nested. And the beauty of plain HTML is that it's automatically responsive. So you don't have to add any extra CSS code or JavaScript in order to make your website responsive. It's responsive just like that. So it's going to fit your device, whatever your device is. So after making these lists, so I was demonstrating the lists because the next step that I would like to do with the lists is to create a menu. So how about we create a link to the About page? And in order to create a link, we are going to use a special tag, A, or anchor. And for an anchor tag, you also will use the so-called HTML attribute. And the main attribute for an A tag is href. Where you tell HTML what file it should open when you click on it. So in this case, I added about HTML, and as you see, it doesn't exist. So we should actually create it. So I'm going to copy the contents of this file, create a new one, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to delete everything else. No, I'm going to change the title, just the title to about, and leave these the same, and then here. And I'm going to save it as about.html. So and I'm going to try to open the index.html here. So you see that the text part that we enclosed in the A tags, it became blue, and when we click on it, then it changes to the about page. So, and it seemed as if the transition is seamless because the most part of the page is basically the same. So there's a title, which is basically the same size and the same height as the title of the new page. And there's just one paragraph of text. And in the new page, in the about page, there's also just one paragraph of text. So we can also notice that there's one thing. So how do we get back to the main page? So maybe like one thing that we should add to the list is also a link to the home page. So let's go back to HTML. Let's go to the index file here. Home. You can point to index, or you can just add a slash. I don't know, index.html. I really don't know what is better. And I'm going to copy the same list element also to the about HTML. And I can open the file here. You hit refresh, and you see that the home link appears. So now I can easily navigate from about page to home page and back. So yeah, what about Git? So why did we install Git? So now it's time to actually make the first version, so make the first commit or pointer in history. So that's kind of a success already, so that we see our website in some sort of a state, not a final state, but like we see like a basic skeleton of it. So we can go to command line. And so if you cloned the directory, if you clone the repository correctly, then by typing git status, it will tell you what has changed. And so for me, there are two new files. So one is the index.html file, which is the first one that we added. And then there's the about.html file. So, and Git will tell in a text way so that they're untracked files. In order to make them tracked, we need to use a special Git command, which is git add. Git add is going to add a file to the so-called staging area. So it's kind of an intermediate area in Git, which is not yet a commit, but it's kind of a sandbox where you throw things in before packaging them and actually describing what they are. So I'm going to add the index file there. So git add index.html. And if I type git status again, so it's going to tell me that, hey, there are changes to be committed. And yeah, that you can use this and this command to actually unstage it. So that means if there's something to unstage, that means that that we just staged something. So this index.html file now is staged. So with this staged file, we can do the following. We can use the git commit command in order to create a commit. And we should also describe the commit. And this is where the minus or like -m flag comes in. So we specify that we want to add a message to this commit. And then in quotes, you can use single or double quotes. It's really up to you. You'll describe what you are adding. So add index file of my documentation website. And I hit enter. So Git is going to tell me that, yeah, so that it changed one file, and 26 insertions means that it inserted 26 lines. So how Git version control works, it works, so it counts lines. So whenever it detects changes, it doesn't work on an individual character level. So if there's a line in a file where you change just one thing, if you change one character, Git is going to take that whole line apart and is going to replace with another line. And then after adding a commit or an entry in history, you can use git log in order to see what actually happened. So on the topmost is going to be your last commit. And for each commit, there's this hash, individual, like unique hash being generated. And with each commit, you can see who is the author. So in case you're collaborating with someone, you will see that someone has added a change to the repository. In your case, it's going to be mostly you who is working on the repository. And then you're going to see the email, and you're going to see the date, and the time and time zone, and also the description. If in some case you want to go back to the previous commit or some commits earlier, then you just grab the identifier of that commit, and then you go git reset and that commit number, and just go back in time to that specific point. And at this point, if I type git log, you'll see that the last entry is not there anymore, but the changes are still there. So basically now we are at the same point where we were before, that we need to index HTML. We need to add the commit message. It's there. And what we can do now is, so in order to push to our GitLab repository, we can use the git push command. And if your SSH key setup is, oh, I'm not allowed to push. So it seems that my SSH setup is not working for some reason. So let's see. That is interesting. Maybe I just need to add. Add a key. Fingerprint has been already taken.
You can also just leave it blank.
Okay, now.
Now when you do the just go start to do that again and go back. So just go to that.
Right, so maybe project settings. All right, my projects.
Oh, sorry, this way, this way. Oh, 7.
I should be able to do that.
I think it's the same as the. What's the slash? It's beautiful. Yeah? Yeah. Then it's not
Or maybe I should add.
right. Now it's okay. It's for
This is no such file or there is no like something wrong.
the yeah. They're in the
Okay, now it works. I just had to add myself to the account. But in your case, since you're using your own email address and that's your only account, you should be able to push just like that because you're the owner of the repository. So, and after the git push, you should see output message similar to this one. And what it means that the changes that you just did locally are actually uploaded on the repository. And when you go to your project repository over here, then you will see the message that you typed as the commit message in the terminal as the last change that you did to the repository. And you can click here, or you go to the commits section over here. You click there, and you'll see all the changes that have been done. And when you click on change, you will also see specific things that have been added or removed. So in my case, it's the whole index HTML page here. So I'm going to go back to the root of the repository, and go back to the terminal, clear it, type git status again, and you see that there is one more untracked file, which is the about HTML file. So you git add about HTML, git commit -m to add a message, add about page, and git push to push it. So now with this done, so I can refresh this page over here and see that now I have an about HTML file here. So with this done, what I would like you to have is automatic publishing of this. So an automatic publishing means that this repository is something that should be put on a web server, and what I would like to have at the end of it is that you can access this documentation as a regular website. So, and in order to do so, we are going to use this Git CI CD functionality, which is you should think of it as a robot that you can tell this robot what to do with your files. And we are going to use one file, which is called GitLab CI file, in order to tell that robot to take our HTML files and put them on a web server. To do so, in the repository that you have, go to this section where you see the plus icon over here. And when you click on it, you will see that there's an option to add new file. So you have to click on that. And then you're gonna end up in this menu. So you can add a plain file, or you can select a template. And we need the GitLab CI YAML template. So this is the file that will actually contain instructions for the GitLab CI CD system for it to do something. So you select this, and it has many flavors. So there are some predefined things that you can already do. So it could compile and test C++ code, for example, or it could review code quality of your repository. It could compile a Go code and host it somewhere. It could actually check what's going on with your PHP quality. And then for the pages, so we are mostly interested in the pages part. So here are several static website generator templates, which, for example, if you are working with Markdown, then most of these are basically taking Markdown as input and transforming it to a static HTML website. So we are just working with plain HTML for this part, and we just need these plain HTML files that we just created to put somewhere on the server and served, so we can access it from outside. So we select HTML, and GitLab is going to add a description for us. So in this YAML file, so you can see that, okay, so this relates to pages, then what kind of stage it is, and then the actual script that should be executed. So all this system works on a system that's called Docker, and in Docker you have some predefined Linux containers already. So some operating systems that are already there that are kind of a ready sandbox for you to play around with. And then this description, so these scripts, the script part comes on top of that operating system. So I think for this YAML file, for this scenario, the Alpine project is used. So it's really simple Linux distribution. And what you can see here is just creating a .public directory. So dot means that it's an invisible directory. Then it's gonna copy all the contents of your repository to this directory, and it's gonna move this directory to a visible public directory. And then the artifacts part here, it actually defines which artifacts in GitLab CI/CD language means things that should be kept after the task has been completed. And here we are just telling the GitLab system to keep the public folder. And the pages module of the GitLab CI is going to take this public folder and put it on a web server. So that's about it. So like a short, maybe not the best explanation, but so you can read more on the GitLab documentation about this functionality. So, and I'm going to change the description a little bit so that add add GitLab CI file to publish HTML page, and commit changes. And you'll see that also this adding of a file has created a new commit. So if I go back to the Fab Academy 2020 repository, now I'll check the commits over here. You'll see the last commit is add GitLab CI file to publish HTML page. You click on that. And you see these blue icons appeared. So it means that GitLab, the CI/CD robot, actually detected that there's a description file for it, and it started running it. And here you can see its output. So it looks like another Linux terminal. And you can follow also its process. So there's a GitLab runner, some Docker image, then it is fetching changes, so it's basically cloning our repository, and then it's executing the command, so it's making a public directory, and then it's copying the files into the public directory, and then making it visible to the artifacts module, and the job succeeded. So, and in order to make our pages visible, so you go to the settings module, so settings menu item of the repository, and you click on pages. So here you can have some options. So nowadays, like HTTPS is kind of a de facto standard. So every website that you make, you should try to somehow enable HTTPS on it. So it's nice that they have this here. And here is a URL. Here you'll see an URL where you can access your website. And not so much anymore with the GitLab interface around it, but as a website. So, and for now it's 404 because it takes a few minutes in order for it to activate. So yeah, as you see, there's a message. So it might take up to 30 minutes before the site is available after the first deployment. So the first time you do this, the first time you activate the GitLab CI system, it's going to take up to 30 minutes in order for it to activate. So yeah, so that's about the flow. So for all of you, I would like to try to do this. So you can actually, at the end of it, see your website in a web browser in a similar fashion as you can see it on your desktop. So if you double click this one here, so you should see this when you're opening the GitLab URL and be able to navigate your site. So about the ways how you can further develop it. So last year, so if you go to fabacademy.org website and you go to the tutorials section over here, so I added HTML basics tutorial here. So you can work through it. So it has all the basics that you need in order to set up the documentation website fully. And it also covers how to add images, how to add tables, image grids, and also all the things that I told about document structure. And at the end of this week, so you should have the About page, the final project page, and also an assignments section with a description how you manage to build the HTML website and like the ways that you used in order to push it to the Git repository. So everything that we did today, so step by step, should be also in this first week section. Then a really good reference about HTML you can find in the MDN web documentation website. So if you are looking for some additional elements, so nowadays there are all kinds of elements for displaying not just images but also videos and audio. So make use of those. And then if you're running into trouble with Git, then check out this website. So it describes some scenarios. Yeah, bye. So it describes some scenarios how to get out of trouble when you're having trouble with Git. So or then, so if you have something that you cannot solve by using all these resources, then so just come to the Fab Lab. I'm going to be around. So not tomorrow, but I'm going to be here from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So Wednesdays are your days, so you can come here and work at the lab and use the machines and ask whatever. So what else? And of course, don't forget that. So I'm going to add the issues to your repositories. So if I go to issues over here and we look at the week 1, so I'm gonna add this issue to each of your repositories. And just if you're getting in trouble to understand what you have to accomplish during the week, just take a look at the learning outcomes and check whether you read the Fab Charter, sketch your final project idea, describe it, and then for the practical part that we just covered, so you should make a simple website. You should introduce yourself in that website, so in the About section. Then you should document the steps, how you use Git in order to upload it to GitLab. You should be able to push it to GitLab repository and end up having it as a website link. So this student agreement thing, it applies to the official Fab Academy students. So you should, but this relates to the actual Fab Cloud Git repository. Right. So you should take this agreement. I mean, it makes sense for you to read it as well because it has some basic rules, like some recommendations about how to behave in makerspaces in general. So you should copy this markdown file, edit it like with your signature, and push it to your Fab Academy repository.
With the documentation of like Git and you said one of the tasks was documenting the use of Git.
Yeah.
Right? Where should that go?
So in the documentation website. So we can take a look at some examples. So from last year's. So if you look at the content in 2019, let's check the students. So it's Kanai. Let's take this one. So you see there's a website template. It's about me page. So very detailed. It doesn't need to necessarily to be so detailed. Agreement and principles and practices. So this year, the principles and practices and project management, they are in the same week. So basically the sketch, it should go to the final project stage page, but then the project management part, this is where you should add the ways you use JIT. And the way you structure it is up to you, but this looks like a very structured way. So yeah, you use this education, and actually you can also, if you're in trouble, you can use the documentation from the previous years as a source of information for you, but do not copy it. So try to use it as a reference material rather, so that would help you to understand the topic a bit more in depth. So what else? From the tutorials, so if you are not interested in HTML basics, so you know that already, and you want to try something new, then I recommend to set up MKDocs. So it's a website generator which allows you to write your documentation in Markdown, and then in GitLab there's a special way how you use the GitLab YAML file in order to generate HTML page from the Markdown files. So there's a tutorial also, so that I did last year. So you can work over this one. Yeah, but you got the idea. So we see next week. So the next, if it's optional. So but on Monday I'm gonna give a recitation about JIT, like one more.
It's not mandatory.
Not mandatory.
What's the sort of relation with MKDocs and Hugo? Hugo also, no, MKDocs does the Markdown.
They're both static website generators, and Hugo is just it's also based on Markdown. Yeah. So you have a content folder where you put in Markdown files. It's just that it's written in Go.
Yeah.
That's why it's Hugo.
Yeah, Go is kind of weird to me, so.
It's a cool language. It makes sense.
To learn Go to use Hugo though?
No, not at all. It's what makes it great is because in order to use it, you just need to download one executable. So there's only one file that is needed. So for things that are built in NPM, let's say, or that are built on top of Ruby, so usually when you install them, there are dependencies of dependencies. There's a huge tree of dependencies that have to be downloaded. In the case of Go, when you compile a program, then all the dependencies, all the libraries are encapsulated in this one executable. And when you download it for your system, so we can take a look at it. So Go Hugo.
I used a little bit of Hugo, but not really a lot.
So when you go to the Hugo, there's a Hugo YAML file in the GitLab CI repository as well. So if you want to build your documentation site in Hugo, which actually I did for my Fab Academy project, then yeah, feel free to do so. So there's.
Okay. But so what's MKDocs like?
It's similar. I don't remember exactly. I think it's built on npm. So MKDocs.
Okay.
So MKDocs is the fast, simple, and downright gorgeous static site generator degenerated towards building project documentation. Documentation is Markdown and configured with a YAML file. It's a wonder. It's built on Python.
Wow.
So yeah, Python is nice. I like Python.
And so the recommendation to use MKDocs is
because so it started last year. I discovered last year, and then Fiori, who was managing the Fab Academy IT operations and also giving the recitation usually about JIT and GitLab in the first week. So he found this very useful as it is built for project documentation. So as you see, the MKDocs is static site generator geared towards building project documentation. And you see, so it's really easy to create structure, like as the recommended structure that they ask from you with it. So if you're into these sort of frameworks and you feel like you can handle this quickly, then I would recommend to go with this or Hugo. So Hugo is also great. With Hugo, the thing is, it's really easy to install. So if you go to releases, then for each release you'll see a list of these. And each of these have a executable in it. So let's see. I will download the Mac OS X 64-bit.
I'm at least using Hugo. We already have the website set up. So.
Yeah, I actually set up one web page with Google, so I kind of know that.
Whenever you need to get the latest version, then it's just this one file, and you don't need Hugo. So here's the Hugo.
How do you go around this in terminal?
I think you sort of Mac system. I need to switch to Linux as soon as possible. I start to hate Mac.
Always.
What's your problem?
How to open files from unknown developers in terminal?
So you need to go to security and privacy, and you need yeah. So the last message here is that Hugo was blocked. So allow anyway. You close this down and
Okay.
open it. Yes, of course. And then it displays all the versions. So you see, it's just running that file. So you don't need any dependencies. And then you type Hugo new. Hugo news site. And yeah, you see it's. What did it put in resources? That's interesting. Yeah, it's generating some sort of a resources folder now. And you go into www, and here's like a skeleton of that. And you have to edit the config file. So you will enter the URL of your website and the title of your website. And then you'll have the layouts in the layouts folder and the content in the content folder. And then the static files, such as CSS files or JavaScript files, you'll put in the static folder. So how it goes, it's like,
So can you move up the window just a little bit
sorry, yeah.
behind your back?
So-
Oh, yeah.
So touch content. And yeah, so let's add some content in it. So echo. No, I did have problems with the exclamation mark. Okay, and then in the layouts, so you need to and then
Can you tell us about the CI file again? Because I'm a bit lost after you do that.
was it like this? And yeah. So I need to make a directory. So touch layouts. No, wait, I'm okay there. So the default directory in layouts is going to be the directory for the default templates.
Yeah.
And then single HTML is going to be a template for the single page. And then I'm going to echo like Hugo site says. And then this is how you add the content from the markdown files or other parameters in here. So dot means the current scope. So you can read about all that in the Hugo documentation, but this is like the simplest, as simple as it goes. Wait, no. This is gonna add a line layout. default single HTML. Or was it? Wait. Yeah, and then Hugo server, and you should be able to find the website over here. It's making a server, so it's empty, but in the terminal you should see what's the problem. Found no layout file for HTML for home. So you should actually create in the layouts folder. I think you should create an index.html file. So and go server. Yeah, so this is index file. Okay, and then for the index file, from the index file, now I'm going to open it in Sublime. So let's see, layouts here, index. This is index. Let's add a link to about. Let's see if that works. Oh, no, wait, not this one. Yeah. Here you go, and this is the about page. So basically, now if you take a look at the structure in Sublime, so here in content, what I created an about page here. And then whenever we add something, then Hugo also updates the files, so the final generated file, the final generated content over here. So, oh, this is me, it's content. So, and then you would use a combination of, so here, so the single HTML, it means that it's a template for a single Hugo page. And this is, so the markdown file maps directly to a section. So about MD means that it's a /about page in your website. And then in the HTML file, so you can use these variable descriptions in order to replace the parts of the content with the content from the markdown file. You can also use parameters, different parameters. You can define them in the markdown files or in the configuration. For example, you can display the site title by using the site variable over here, and then here. And this is pulled out of the config toml here.
And what's up with Gitbook? That's another one.
Oh, Gitbook is a nice way to create books. I mean, like Markdown. So if you're writing a fiction book or science fiction book or something that is rather simple and maybe requires sometimes a footnote or two, then it's a cool way to go. So also the platform that they built.
Have you tried it for documentation?
So there are some things on the Fab Academy website which are using Gitbook. But it really depends on the scenario. So when you really need a PDF or a book as an output at the end, then it really makes sense to use it. But I think the platform that they built is really nice because you can publish right away. So if you write something interesting and you don't want to collaborate with a publisher that is basically just offering you maybe 10% from all of the sales of your creative work. So for some it's fine, for some not. Then I think Gitbook really offers you a bit better option. But it seems that they changed something last time, since the last time I visited them. Yeah, but if you want to go full academic, then I think nothing beats a pure LaTeX. So, but for documentation, Markdown. Yeah, have fun. So see you soon. I'm really curious about the lamp.
Yes, I'll bring you.
I want to see that. And yeah, you can use Gitbook as well, because I think you have publishing options that it transforms the Markdown part to HTML and PDF and whatever you want. So it's up to you what you choose. All of these options are cool, but what is important for the assignment is that just you document how you use it and how what were the learnings for you. So because it really doesn't matter what is your background, but it matters that you learn something on top of that. So, and that has to be documented. So also this is where I could stop streaming, and then I will just later process the video a tiny bit, and it should be available in the right playlist on the Fab Academy YouTube channel.